Alrighty, so we will go ahead and get started. It doesn't look like I have too many other people in the waiting room, but if people are waiting, then I'll just let them in. So y'all don't worry about that if you hear anyone. So, as most of you probably know, my name is Mackenzie Knipe, and I'm with the Small Business Development Center here at West Texas A&M. If you've ever called the office or came in, you've probably talked to me to set up an appointment or something. But if I don't know you, nice to meet you, virtually, of course. So today, this is going to be part of our Lunch Club series. So these are a monthly webinar series that we do pretty much every month, and they just cover different business topics for pretty much any business, no matter what industry you're in. The main point of these is we hope that you can really take something away from it. We don't want you to waste your whole lunch hour for nothing, of course. So thank you for joining us, but we want this to be something that you can apply hands-on as soon as you're done with this workshop. Is something you can implement right into your business, or something that you really think about that you want to implement in the future. So if you don't already know, the Small Business Development Center, basically what we do is we have two business consultants in our office. So we have Gina Woodward, who is our regional director. And then we also have Shane Groff, who is our other business consultant, and they can help with pretty much anything you can think of. They can help with a business plan. They can do market research, financial projections, any of that kind of stuff. So if you ever want to make an appointment, just feel free to call us, email us, any of that, and we can definitely get something scheduled. But that's enough of me talking. I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time. So I'm going to pass it over to Cindy Lanham. She is going to be the one who's going to be going over our practical employee relations. So Cindy, take it away. It's all you, okay?
Thank you, Mackenzie.
Yes, of course.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great Wednesday. And I would love to see your faces if you want to show them to me. But if not, I understand. I used to not love that either. My name is Cindy Lanham, and I'm with Marachi Management Group. I wanted to give a little background of how I got here. I've been working within the human resources, primarily the employee relations industry, for most of my work life. I used to have a contract with the Department of Assistive and Rehabilitative Services to do, I was an employment consultant for them, and the Social Security Administration. So my career led me down a path to working at Amarillo College, where my most recent position there was that of Human Resources Director. While I was there, we brought Mike Marachi in with Marachi Management Group. We brought him to Amarillo College 6 times to train our leaders, all of our leaders, how to be good leaders. So I fell in love with the program, and subsequently left Amarillo College and joined Mike to spread the word of good leadership. So I'm thrilled to have you all join this training today. I would love to get a little bit of information from each of you if you want to type in and share that with me. Let's start with Jalen.
Hi, this is Sandy. I'm here.
Hi, Sandy. I can hear you. I can't hear anybody else. Tell me what you do.
Sure. So I'm at North Heights Linen Service. I am currently a project manager here, and then October 1st, we're going to start a contract that will move me into a position of more of a leadership role.
Oh, good. Okay, good. This is a good time for you to hear some of this program for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Is anyone else able to pop in?
Hi, Cindy. It's Michelle. Can you hear me?
I can, Michelle. Hello.
Good. Finally got it to work. I'm at West Texas A&M Extended Studies, and I'm the director here of Extended Studies.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Jalen or Adam, are y'all able to pop in? Maybe not. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. One of my first questions at every training session is I do like to hear what our participants think employee relations is. Do any of you want to share with me what you think that means, employee relations? Sandy, do you want to chime in?
Sure. So I would say, just basically how you interact with employees and how they interact with you.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. Michelle, do you have a thought?
Basically, I think from a leadership standpoint, not just interaction, but how to bolster those relationships, certainly professional, but also when an opportunity arises to have more of a personal relationship without crossing boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. So employee relations is a company structure and how they manage the rapport between leadership and staff. So that's exactly right. And to me, it's one of the most important components within any business organization. It's one of the main factors of the success of an organization. I firmly believe in that and always have. So yeah, it is a company structure and how they manage rapport between leadership and staff. One thing that I want to go over real quickly are the goals of employee relations. One huge goal or desire for any employer is to make sure you build bonds, not barriers. You will inevitably come across challenging times or challenging situations doing employee relations with any organization, but building bonds and not barriers is one of those trust. You set the tone of trust when you start with that. So that's one of the most important things that you can do. You definitely want to maintain positive relationships for a better working environment, which reduces turnover and increased productivity. When you have strong employee relations within your organization, you're going to have happy employees, and that's what you want. You want to also foster an environment where employees look forward to starting their workday. You want your employees to want to come to work with you and for you. That just means more production, definitely reduces turnover, and it's just a happier place to be. So one of the things that we're going to talk about, that's a big foundation of the training that we provide through Marachi Management Group, is move toward aspiring for what we call a harmonious work environment. We'll go over a little more of that in just a minute. So some of the key concepts of effective employee relations is there are strategies and strategies and tactics to reach this goal. By maximizing your use of these concepts, you will minimize legal challenges to your employee relations decisions, because there's always a potential legal challenge if employee relations are not handled correctly. So let's go over some of these key effective employee relation concepts. The first one is be reasonable. It's actually more important than being logical. Be reasonable and be fair, okay? Consciously choose your promises and keep them. So if you make a decision and you set a tone or a standard, be sure that you stick with that and stand by that. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Communicate standards and expectations up front. That way there's no gray and your employees know what the expectations are. So communication is key to successful employee relations. This is a big one, and it's also part of the framework of the 2-day training program that we provide through Marachi Management Group. Keep your focus on attendance, performance, and conduct. When you're focusing on those 3 things, nothing else really matters. Nothing that can get your leaders in trouble or you as a leader that can get you in trouble. If you're focusing on attendance, performance, and conduct, you're on the right path. That's one of the big things that we focus on in our training program. Also, hold everyone accountable for their behavior. You don't want any tones being set of any of your employees being treated differently than the others. You definitely want to hold everyone accountable for their behavior. Be consistent and fair in your treatment of all employees. And if you have to choose between the two, be fair. Always be fair in your interactions with your employees. You definitely want to keep confidential employee information private. Okay, don't compromise anyone's confidential information. And when you make decisions, you want to document the reasons for those decisions. You want to be thoughtful about the decisions you're making and why, and document that. This is a big one. Fix problems. Recognize if you have problems, respond timely, and resolve them. That's one of the foundations of employee relations. There is no rug to sweep things under for fixing problems. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts about these key concepts? I didn't mean to do that. No questions? Okay. So the next thing that we want to talk about is maintaining a harmonious work environment. Does anyone want to give me their thoughts on what that means? Sandy, do you have a thought?
Well, harmony is it's one of the things that's most important to me, and it is a challenge, I think. So actually, I would love to hear how how to foster a harmonious work environment, because if you try to make everybody happy, you'll fail.
Yeah. Well, and that
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. And that goes back to if you can find the balance and focus on consistency and fairness, that helps also promote and foster a harmonious work environment too. But yes, it's a challenge.
Cindy, I was just going to add, I feel like sometimes in the realm of leadership or management, there's a misconception about harmonious work environments, that there's kind of a mindset that many people might think everybody, for lack of better terms, is just sitting around singing kumbaya around the campsite fire. And that's not always what it looks like. Sometimes it's just agreeing to disagree because there's a task at hand, or, an objective to be made. And so we have to kind of just meet in the middle. And like Sandy was saying, you can't always make everyone happy, but how can you still somehow side with those individuals to keep the ball rolling and to achieve that task or objective?
Yeah. So when you're in a situation where there's different opinions, different thought processes, and everybody wants to be heard, of course, that's part of working in any environment. Respect is a big thing. Employees want to be heard. They want to feel like that their opinion matters. So partnering is a big thing, and not everyone's going to agree. But in a leadership role, that's part of being the leader, is once the decision is made, implementation comes in. So not everyone has to be happy about the decisions leaders make, but that's the role of a leader, is to make those decisions that are best for the organization and implement the process to put them in place. And then if it leads to subordinate performance issues or acting out, that's definitely something you would want to address. That's part of promoting a harmonious work environment, is performance and conduct. So does that help answer your question?
Yes, I think that's exactly what I was kind of trying to get at. Sometimes you agree to disagree, and that looks, in lots of different ways, but certainly exactly right. Yeah,
you just have to do your best to implement what you've decided to do and get everybody on board. And then if, they make decisions on their own to not be on board, then that's part of that performance conversation for sure. Okay, so harmonious work environment by definition is a culture in which people feel safe, seen, heard, and respected. That's the definition of it. It's when people, even if they don't agree, they still feel like they were heard and that they were respected in their thought processes. So critical to maintaining a harmonious working environment are that the employees have high self-esteem. You want to make sure your employees are built up and have high self-esteem, which leads to them feeling safe, seen, heard, and respected, and treat them with respect. Even if you're not on the same page, or even if you don't disagree, or even if you do disagree, just be sure that the communication and messaging is done with respect. And you want your employees to feel like they work in a safe, nonviolent setting. So in our 2-day program, we go into depth about what that looks like, and implementing policies and that kind of thing to make sure that your work environment, your employees feel safe, seen, heard, and respected. Achieving a harmonious work environment requires a top thing, good on-the-job relations. You've got to have those relationships with your employees and even your own upline if you're a leader, and your subordinates. Clear understanding of policy. That is very, very important. Your employees need to know what policy is and that you're adhering to it. Here we are, what we were just kind of talking about, Michelle, shared expectations of conduct, agree to disagree. It's your job as a leader to implement those things, and your employees need to be on board. And then active enforcement. So if you have a situation where it's not, you don't have enough people on board, or whatever, you need to make sure that you're talking to them and enforcing what your expectations are. Does that make sense? Anyone have any questions about achieving a harmonious work environment? Okay, and this is one of the big, what I call the APCs, implementing attendance, performance, and conduct standards. Does anyone have any thoughts about what this means that you want to share with me? No? Okay. Attendance, performance, conduct standards are you set them, you communicate them, and you enforce them. So setting them is the framework, you get them all built and established, and then you communicate with your downline what those standards are. Make sure they're fully aware of what those standards are, even when they change. If they change, you have what I would call a reset meeting, go over the new expectations, communicate, and then enforce. And you have to stay on top of that. You want to make sure that when you set standards that you are enforcing them across the board with all of your employees. Okay. Performance management. I found personally performance management to be the one thing that I needed a lot of coaching on this when I was growing up in my role to director of HR, because I want people to like me, and I do. I mean, that's just part of who I am. But I also had to learn how to do performance management, do it well, where it was across the board, and there was no gray between employees. And I had the best mentor on the planet. My vice president at Emerald College of Human Resources is amazing, and she mentored me very well. So I can drive this home. I've overcame my fear of doing this. I think it's a fear that all, especially new leaders, have. Does anyone want to share any fears that they have about performance management? Michelle, have you ever experienced that?
This is something that is an area of weakness for me as well, kind of learning and growing in my new role. And I think it kind of circles back to your previous slides about that harmonious work relationships and environments, right? So if you've got an employee that may need some performance improvement plan or something like that, there's kind of a fine line how to set those expectations and communicate / enforce, like you were just showing, and definitely an area of weakness that I tend to have. It's hard, right?
Yes, it is. It was definitely an area of weakness for me, and I definitely on the other side of it see the need for it. So yeah, it's to me it was one of the hardest things for me to overcome, is doing that performance management as I grew up in my role. Sandy, have you ever had any struggles with that?
So I really haven't been in that type of a supervisor role yet, but I know that I share the same feelings as you do, is, oh, I want everybody to like me, and that doesn't always fly in a leadership position.
Right. How about Olivia or Jalen? Do you have any thoughts on this before we move on? Okay, well, thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. But first and foremost, set and reset performance expectations. And it can be done with some great soft skills. And if they need to be, if you need to drive things home a little firmer, then that can be done that way too, professionally and with respect to your employees. So definitely set the expectations, and that's not gray. And it makes the performance management process much easier because you've laid it all out. This is one of my favorite things. And this is, I have experienced and seen where even in our leaders at AC, it was new. So nobody really knew what to do. So provide on-the-spot coaching and counseling. One of the worst things a leader can do, in my opinion, is keep a checklist of what someone's done wrong for months and months and then lay it on them in their performance evaluation. They need to know, they need to be aware at the time they've have had a performance issue. They need to know right then. You need to talk to them immediately and quickly and document that. That way that gives them an opportunity to succeed. It resets your expectations, and it's more pro-employee, if that makes sense. But then if it leads down a path that it's just not working out, you've got your documentation and your you're coaching, we call it coaching and counseling, where you're coaching those employees in the moment. Don't make checklists or don't make lists and dump it on them months later. Address performance issues. Talk to your employees when they're not meeting your expectations. Just talk to them and say, okay, this is what I've outlined for you. We have a deficit here. What can we do to get you moved in the right direction? And then draft and present your performance appraisals timely and honestly. Ask for their feedback if you want. There are many, many different performance appraisal systems out there now, much more than there have been in years past, to help leaders get through drafting and presenting performance appraisals. And you want it to be a conversation. It doesn't need to be a top down, this is what I say about you, and kind of an old mentality. Have a conversation with your employees and be honest with them about their performance. I think one of the best things that my mentor told me is if I wasn't doing that, I'm getting in the way of my employees. If I wasn't helping them grow, I was part of the problem. So that's when it was a pivot moment for me, because I definitely didn't want to be a problem for anyone on my team. Anybody have any other thoughts or questions about performance management? Michelle, does that help you at all?
Yes, it does.
Good. Okay. Corrective action. This is when those conversations just aren't working, that, whether it's performance or attitude, you need to address it. If you have someone who's needs a corrective action conversation, make it happen. Address personality and attitude problems. Conduct is one of the main requirements in the workplace: attendance, performance, and conduct. And if the attitude is not matching up to your expectations, you need to address it with them. For a lot of reasons, for productivity, and when it's allowed, other teammates and peers see that behavior going on, and if it's not addressed, then it's perceived as being okay. So you definitely want to address personality and attitude problems. Address previously unaddressed conduct, especially if you're new in a leadership role. I mean, if you've taken over a team and there's some conduct issues that you need to get reined in out of the gate, then talk to your employees about that and set your expectations and let them know what you expect. Conduct corrective active meetings. They're not fun, they're not comfortable, but they're necessary. And again, through that lens of you're not helping your employees grow if you're allowing actions to occur that need correcting. And then prepare corrective action documentation. Make sure that you have everything written out and outlined, and you can send like an email that this is what we discussed in our corrective action meeting today, and then their response, asking for them to respond to that. That's always a good tip, where you've basically confirmed with that employee that they've understood the meeting and the conversation, and that's their acknowledgement of that action. Any questions about corrective action? All right. The next thing that I want to talk about is resolving common workplace issues. That happens everywhere. Every workplace has issues that they need to address. Okay, so let's go over sort of a global view of how to handle whatever's coming your way within your organization. You want to, number one, prevent legal problems. So make sure that you are in tune with what your own policies are and what that looks like, and make sure that whatever you're trying to overcome or accomplish is based on your policy. Very, very importantly, and we drive this home in our training program, do it right and be perceived that you're doing it right. That's back to that trust issue. When you've built bonds and not barriers, you've got trust within your team and within your organization, and you want to make sure that you're doing things right and that you're perceived by your team and your employees in your organization that you're doing it right. You want to make sure that you check all those boxes. And balance employee and employer rights. Employers have rights, so do employees. So make sure you find that balance in what your employee rights are and your employer rights are. Good faith effort equals legal protection. So just make sure that everything you're doing is with good faith to the best of your knowledge, and that you document every decision that you're making. Good intentions leads to legal exposure. So that's what you want to avoid. Any questions about these kind of global strategies about how to approach workplace issues? Michelle, did you have any thoughts on that?
No, not really.
Does it make sense?
For sure, yeah.
Okay, Sandy, how about you?
I like what you said about good faith effort. That is, a legal term that can cover you in a bad situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of our program, our 2-day training program, is designed for leaders, and it's based on how to stay out of court. Basically, it's a whole 2-day training program of how to avoid legal exposure. So yes, you want to make sure you have written policies, that you have training programs in place, and that you actively enforce your policies across the board. What did it there? Effective employee relations requires more than law and policy compliance. If you're in a leader role, this is just a good tip. Of course, employee relations, the law is you've got federal statutes, you've got state statutes, and you've got judges' decisions. But one of the main things that you want to make sure that you focus on is use good judgment when you're applying those federal statutes, those state statutes, and those when you're applying all of that, make sure that you use good judgment. That's just a good rule of thumb. Don't be reactive and punitive or anything like that. Just make sure that your decisions for your employees are made with good judgment. And then I don't know, I always put this out. I would like your feedback on this. In your organizations, do you have separate human resources offices, or is it small enough? What does that look like within your organization? Michelle, what does yours look like?
Ours is more centralized here at WT. While we're kind of a campus partner and don't always use the exact same funding sources for the rest of the university, very similar to like SBDC. We're kind of a partner to the university, but not representative of the university, I guess might be a better way to say it, but still housed central HR for the entire institution or university. Okay.
How about you, Sandy? What does yours look like?
That person plays a dual role.
Okay. That's common. That's real common. In larger organizations, there's, a human resources department, but one of the most profound things that I've ever learned in my HR roles from my past is human resources office is a resource office. It's not the principal's office. And I've been with organizations in my past that, it was kind of the principal's office, and that was the perception. That is not true. It is a human resource office, meaning they have a dual role. They're a partner with management, and they're employee advocate. So they have to play both roles. They're not there for only management to go through. I know that's been a kind of a misconception for a long time, that they're only there to help managers, with problems they're having with their employees, but that's not true. So one of the most profound things I've ever heard is focus on the word resources. That's exactly what that office is for. So make sure that you know that. And then as a leader, that you leverage them when you need help. Consult human resources, get their involvement. They are not the decision makers for the actions that are occurring at the leader level, but they are there to be supportive, again, to both management and employees when issues arise. So they're there to be involved with you, to advise you for those, specifically for those things that you're not familiar with in your roles, the legalities and the policies and all the federal laws and that kind of thing. Lean on your HR office to make sure that you're in compliance when you're making decisions. Let them advise you, and then seek out for assistance if you're having trouble. Again, that's what they're for. That's what the HR office is for within any organization, even if it's a dual role. Whoever's representing that role is there to help you. And then this is my contact information. So just a little more, what Mike Mararchi and I do is we go around, we present programs to leaders within an organization, just like he did for Amarillo College. And what I loved about the program, while I left my role as director of HR there, is I wanted to be part of something great to help leaders. I saw from my seat what this program did for our leaders and empowered leaders like yourselves, or evolving leaders like yourselves, how to navigate complicated employee relations issues. So it's a great toolkit for tenured leaders and new leaders, how to handle those employee relation situations at the leader level. So this is my contact information. I would love to hear from you if you want the program to be brought in to your organization, or if you know someone, you know, that whose organization might need it, just please feel free to pass along my information. I would love to take some questions if you have any.
Cindy, do you have any best tips or practices on when it comes to those APCs and the part that you and I both agree with struggling, especially when you've got a employee that may need to be on a performance improvement plan or something like that. Best tips and practices on how to deliver constructive criticism to still ensure and maintain that harmonious work environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the best tips I can give you is remember that everyone's a human and we all make mistakes. And when are you talking about having the conversation with your employee, how to initiate the conversation and set the tone?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're having a conversation about attendance, performance, or conduct, it's a serious conversation and you need to set that tone. But I wouldn't set it as if you're in desk between person. I had more success in my role if I sat down with a person, not behind my desk, at my table, and you may not have one, or find a room, if you've got a conference room that you can just kind of sit together and start the conversation out. You know, we've got something that we need to talk about. We have an issue we need to address, and this is what it is. Can you explain to me you know, what's happened here? And is this someone that you have worked with and they've been on a performance plan before and they're just not coaching up? What does it look like?
No, not at all. In fact, I am very fortunate. The team that I have working for me right now was the existing team before I took my new role. And while very small office, we've got a great crew. It's just, again, something that I know is an area of weakness. And I just seek to be better at. I'm always reminded, I'm a big Brene Brown fan, and I'm reminded of her quote about kind being cool, and clear is kind. And so I feel like as a leader, in order to be kind to an employee, you've got to address those situations as soon as possible. And again, the APCs set, communicate, and enforce, and do it regularly. But I sometimes struggle with that, wanting to be liked by everyone, like you'd mentioned, and delivering, while it may be constructive criticism, sometimes my delivery I struggle with.
Yeah, one thing that I had to do when I knew I was having, this is on the personal side, because again, that was my weakness, was that performance management. I knew so many people at AC because I've been there so long, and I've been friends with so many for so long. And now I'm in HR, kind of, you know, on an island. So I had to work on my own personal barrier there. And there were mornings, you know, if I knew I was going to have a tough conversation, I would just talk to myself. I would practice in front of the mirror. I would take a deep breath before I had that conversation, because there were some really tough conversations to be had. And I would just do what I needed to do to get myself prepared for that meeting, and then just go in with confidence, know that you're doing the right thing, have confidence in your decision. And if it is a tough conversation, that's one of the best things that I did, is I knew that the place I was coming from was better for the employee and the organization. It was helping them grow. So for me, it was a lot of self-talk. I had to, but in time, I was able to get better at that. And I was more confident doing it as often as I needed to in my role there. But just that self-talk, and especially if it's a weakness, just know that you're doing the right thing for the employee and the organization. So it's kind of just confidence building. Does that help?
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
And it looks like there is a message in the chat to everyone. If you want to look at that one, it's from Olivia. And if you can't see it, I can read it to you.
I work for a small company that has multiple family members involved in the leadership team, and some employees do not feel comfortable going to our HR because of family ties. Okay. Any thoughts on how to help HR realize this common feeling among employees without rocking the family boat? That's a tough one. Okay, is HR tied to the family also? Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's so many answers to this question. It depends on how many layers there are. If no one feels comfortable going to HR, that's a problem. I mean, HR is supposed to be available for everyone. So if I'm in that situation and it's all family and there are issues, I would be honest. I mean, I would go to either your supervisor, or I don't know if you're talking about you, or go to HR and just have an honest conversation. Yeah, that's a tough one. So is there a layer between employees and HR, like a supervisor? Okay. Well, the first problem is you remember, go back to build bonds, not barriers. That's also, what HR should do. That should be the expectation of anyone in HR, is that they feel, the employees feel like they can trust that the good decisions are being made. I would, if you don't mind, is this Olivia? I'd like to get more information about the dynamics of the situation, and I'd probably be better guiding you if we have a conversation offline, just because there are so many angles and scenarios involved with this. Is that okay, Olivia? Okay. Just, you've got my number, just write it down and let's have an offline conversation, because again, that's a tough one. That can have many different components to help resolve that one. And I would love to visit with you.
Perfect. So are there any other questions or anything? I didn't see anything else in the chat. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything else. Perfect. Well, if no one else has any more questions, we'll go ahead and get wrapped up. So first and foremost, thank y'all so much for joining us. Thank you for spending your lunch hour. Hope you were still able to grab something to eat in the meantime. I am going to be sending out an email with a survey link. It's just a super quick little Qualtrics survey. It doesn't take too long at all. I just encourage everyone to fill it out, give us your feedback. We definitely do look at these surveys to improve our lunch clubs. Like I said, our lunch clubs are a monthly webinar. So our next one is going to be in September, and I can get the exact date. It's going to be the second Wednesday of the month. And that one is going to be over event planning for small businesses. So that one's going to be on September 13th, and same thing is going to be over the lunch hour from noon to 1. So that one will be with Zeta Cordova. She is the community coordinator here at the WT Enterprise Center, which is our sister department here with the SBDC. So if that's something that interests you, it should be launched on our website, I think, and it'll be a Zoom just like this. So you can go ahead and get registered for that, or we'll be posting it on social media here soon. But if no one else has any other questions, I think that's all I have. Cindy, do you have anything else?
I don't. I thank you for joining me.
Of course.
I've enjoyed being here and presenting this and the interaction. So I appreciate that.
Perfect. Of course. Well, if y'all don't need anything else, feel free to sign off. Cindy put our contact information. If you ever need to call our office, it's just 806-651-5151. But other than that, y'all have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.